If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, you might have analyzed Gandalf's speech for days, and how it targeted Balrog. Honestly, we did the same, so why not do it together? In this video, we are going to talk about the meaning of Gandalf's speech in detail, so let's get started. A big book called the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien tells the story of how everything started. The Anor, supernatural beings made by Eru Elivotar, the supreme god, are at the center of this story. The Holy Ones, or Anor, come from Elivotar's mind and will, long before the world was made from matter. Their music helped make Arda the place where Middle-earth is. One of these Anor was Gandalf, who was known as Ulurin in the halls of time and space in Valinor. He came to Arda to help shape its future. His job was to help and lead the free peoples of Middle-earth. He changed into a Maya, which is a heavenly being less powerful and wise than the Valar. People think that the Flame of Anor that Gandalf talks about is the sun's light and power, representing his inner strength and divine authority. The Balrog, also called Durin's Bane, was once an Ainur. The Balrog, on the other hand, decided to follow Melkor, a fallen Vala, who wanted to rule over Arda instead of Gandalf. Middle-earth's first Dark Lord was Melkor, who became known as Morgoth. He was a source of evil. The Balrogs, who were made of shadow and fire, were his fiery slaves. So even though both Gandalf and the Balrog came from the same heavenly source, their paths diverged, which led to their epic battle in the depths of Moria. This fight in Moria was more than just a fight. It was a meeting of powerful, ancient forces. Gandalf, who held the Flame of Anor, stood for the free people's light and hope. The Balrog was a relic from a darker time because it represented darkness and death. Even though it cost a lot, Gandalf's win was a turning point in the fight against the darkness that was spreading in Middle-earth. Gandalf used to be called Olorin in the stories of Valinor. The name means wise or foresighted, but when he got to Middle-earth, he changed into Gandalf the Grey, a quiet and humble person who traveled the land and helped people where he could. On the other hand, the Balrog that lives in the darkest parts of Moria may remember what it was like to be one of the Ainur, the great spirits that were around before the world was made. Even though Gandalf's real name was Olorin, it was hidden by his human form. The Balrog, who was full of dark memories and old evil, might have recognized him during their epic battle. He held a strong light and said, "Servant of the secret fire," when he faced the Balrog on the bridge of khazad-dum. In Tolkien's mythology, this statement is important. It's also called the flame imperishable. The secret fire is the heavenly creative power that makes life and existence possible. By joining the secret fire, Gandalf shows his devotion to the higher forces that made the world and kept it alive. However, this is very different from the Balrog, which represents darkness, destruction, and chaos. Gandalf's speech isn't just a show of power, it's also a warning of his real goal and the bigger battle going on. There is a bigger story going on in Tolkien's world than just this fight. The battle between good and evil is always going on. Tolkien's stories say that the music of the Ainur set off the fight between good and evil. As heavenly beings, the Ainur are like the thoughts of Eru Elivotar, who made everything. Their music sounds like a cosmic symphony, where the themes of light and dark first fought, deciding the world's fate. The powerful beings known as the Valar and the Maiar came from this divine music. They carry the essence of either light or evil. Gandalf is not just fighting a strong enemy when he faces the Balrog. He is fighting a representation of evil. The Balrog is a Maya who's become evil. He used to be like Gandalf, but now works for Morgoth, the fallen Valar. Morgoth is the worst thing that could happen, and people who are influenced by him become bad. The fact that Gandalf is brave and determined enough to face the Balrog head-on shows that he is a guardian of light. What happens in this fight will have huge effects on the future of Middle-earth, so there is a lot at stake. If Gandalf meets the Balrog on the bridge of khazad-dum, it's not just a fight to stay alive. It's a fight for Middle-earth's very soul. When Gandalf fights, he is not just protecting himself. He's also saving the world from a strong evil force. Gandalf gives one of the most memorable dialogues in Tolkien's epic during his tense battle. He said, "You cannot pass." The orcs stood still, and a dead silence fell. "I am the wielder of the Flame of Anor and a servant of the secret fire. You cannot get across. The dark fire will not help you. Flame or Udun. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass." Even though it's short, Gandalf's message is very important. Each phrase gives us more information about the people and the battle they are fighting in space. The fight between Gandalf and the Balrog is a turning point in Middle-earth's past. His fight against the Balrog is an example of how to stand up to injustice and show that the light will not go out, even when there is a lot of darkness. "You cannot pass," Gandalf says, and his voice can be heard all the way through Moria's huge halls. Gandalf places himself as the guardian by saying this simple but powerful thing. He stands firm against the coming darkness. Even though they are simple, these 4 words have a huge amount of power and resolve. Gandalf is not just talking to the Balrog at this point. He's also making a statement about how strong his will is. But Gandalf's speech is more than just an order. By calling himself the servant of the secret fire, he draws on Middle-earth's deep and long-forgotten history. In Tolkien's mythology, Eru Ilúvatar is the most important god, and the secret fire is a reference to his creative power. This heavenly power is what makes the world and life possible. By calling himself its servant, Gandalf links himself with the force of order and creation, which is the opposite of the Balrog's wrath and chaos. The title Servant of the Secret Fire also refers to Gandalf's greater purpose and his link to God. His role as a wizard is spelled out, but so is his role as a defender of life and creation. Calling on this title tells the Balrog that Gandalf is backed by a force that is stronger than any one power. He is not just Gandalf the Grey, he is an angel sent by God who carries the power of creation. When Gandalf says that he is the wielder of the Flame of Anor, he adds another level of meaning. It is possible that the Flame of Anor refers to Narya, one of the 3 rings of the elves that Gandalf secretly wears. This ring of fire, or Narya, stands for strength, hope, and the ability to motivate others to stand up to oppression and hopelessness. Gandalf is strong enough to lead and inspire others with this ring, even when things look the worst. The Flame of Anor could also be the sun, which in Tolkien's world is a strong sign of divine power and purity. Light, warmth, and life are all things that the sun stands for, which are very different from the Balrog's darkness and evil. By comparing himself to the sun, Gandalf stresses that he is a light of hope and purity that fights the dark forces that are coming closer. The most scary part of Gandalf's speech might be when he calls the Balrog the Flame of Udun. This phrase is full of fear because it refers to Utumno, the old castle of Morgoth, the first Dark Lord. Udun stands for the deep, old evil that is at the heart of Middle-earth's worst past. By calling the Balrog the Flame of Udun, Gandalf recognizes where it came from and how it is linked to the great darkness and evil that Morgoth spread. This identification helps to make the argument even more serious. Gandalf is not only up against a strong enemy, but also an evil that has been around since the beginning of Middle-earth. This information of the Balrog's true nature shows how much Gandalf knows and how dangerous the threat is. In the world of Tolkien's legend, Gandalf's words are full of meaning and symbols. He picks each title and name he uses with care to show what his job is, how powerful he is, and how well he understands the forces at play. The Secret Fire, the Flame of Anor, and the Flame of Udun are all very important symbols that show how powerful Gandalf is and how bad things are that go back a very long way. After looking at this, we can see that Gandalf is more than just a wizard. The things he said in the halls of Moria show how strong, smart, and dedicated he was to his goal. You can't just call Gandalf a wizard. He has the core of life and creation inside him, a divine spark that gives the world shape and substance. When he calls himself the servant of the secret fire, he connects with a higher power, a spiritual force that gives everything life. It's not just about magic, it's about the very nature of things. By saying this, Gandalf is claiming his power and showing that the most powerful force in this world is behind him. It is the Balrog, on the other hand, that is very dark and evil. Iluvatar, the Supreme Creator, made beings like Gandalf and the Balrog to help form and care for the world in Tolkien's world. They are a part of a group called the Anor. The Anor were meant to help make the world and keep it safe, as well as bring beauty, order, and life to it. That said, the Balrog and other dark creatures turned away from this goal. It became a defector, or someone who goes against God's plan when it did that. People see this act of defiance as going against the very heart of what it is, as an act of rebellion. It's not just the fact that Gandalf calls the Balrog a traitor to the Holy Order. He's also sending a strong message. He is drawing attention to the Balrog's fall from favor and painting it as a bad thing. This is not just about strength, it's also a moral and spiritual offense. By standing firm against the Balrog, who stands for darkness, Gandalf is presenting himself as a defender of light and purity. The famous line, "You cannot pass," has a lot of power and force to it. At this point, Gandalf is the last thing that stands between the Balrog and the rest of the world. It shows how determined he is to keep going, even though things are very dark. Gandalf is very sure of what he wants to do, even though he knows the Balrog is dangerous and strong. There is more to this line than just stopping the Balrog. It's about Gandalf's unwavering promise to keep his friends and the world safe from evil. It shows how brave, strong, and ready to give up everything he has for the better good he is. It's a strong statement that shows what Gandalf is really like: a guardian of light, a defender of the world, and a warrior against the darkness that is coming. So why is it "you cannot pass" instead of "you shall not pass"? The phrase "you shall not pass" sounds like Gandalf is telling Balrog what to do. But "you cannot pass" means the Balrog can't get through. It is a fact, not a choice. There is no question about Gandalf's power. When you try to understand Gandalf deeply, you will find out that he is linked to the sun and light. The two trees, Laurelin and Telperion, light up Valinor, where he comes from. All the light and power came from these trees. So, when Gandalf calls on the Flame of Anor, he is using his ancient divine power to stand as a light of hope in the darkness. Laurelin's last fruit was used to make the sun, which contains the core of Valinor's pure light and life. There is a special light here, a light from a time and place that was pure and full of life. It is a reminder of the lasting impact of the ancient world. When we say that Gandalf wields this light, we mean that he has this divine heritage inside of him. Because he comes from the eternal wisdom and power of the stars, this light gives him great strength and resilience. Gandalf is not only facing a strong enemy when he faces the Balrog, he is also calling on the bright fire of Valinor. He calls on the sun's light to fight the darkness and get rid of the shadows of Utumno, the old, evil stronghold. This fight is not just about strength, it's also about light and dark, good and evil. The very soul of Valinor is being used by Gandalf to fight and defeat the dark forces. The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien and the movie version by Peter Jackson both have famous scenes where Gandalf stands on the bridge of khazad-dum. In the book, Gandalf tells the Balrog, "You cannot pass." In the movie, this line is famously changed to "You shall not pass." This change, while small, is important. It changes how Gandalf says it and how strong it is. In Tolkien's mythology, Gandalf always deals with strong enemies in the same way that he did in this scene on the bridge. When Gandalf meets Saruman in Orthanc, he tells him, "Your staff is broken," which takes away all of Saruman's power. It's not just a statement, it's an act of power and control. Gandalf also tells the Witch King of Angmar, "You cannot enter here," when he meets him at the gates of Minas Tirith, stopping him from coming in and protecting the city. In all of these situations, Gandalf's words are more than just words. They are strong claims that change the truth. Gandalf's words have power and weight because he knows a lot about the forces at work. To fully understand Gandalf's power, you need to know the difference between saying what you want to do and making things happen with words. Making a statement of purpose shows how determined and set in his ways Gandalf is, and using words to make things happen shows how good he is at magic, which comes from the ancient craft of language and incantation. It is a big part of Gandalf's power as a wizard and a Maya of Valinor that he can change reality with words. His words have the power to change things, which shows how deeply he is connected to Valinor's ancient knowledge and magic. The fact that Gandalf can change reality with his words shows how strong he is. This makes him a very dangerous enemy of the dark forces. Gandalf's magic shows how powerful he is by changing the world with the elements. It's important to keep his character and the importance of the moment in mind when you want to change his words to make them clearer and more powerful. When Gandalf talks, especially when things are very important, like when he fights the Balrog on the bridge of khazad-dum, he uses themes from old myths. This speech is not just an exciting part of the story, it has deeper meanings in literature and culture. Everywhere in myths and legends around the world, there is a person who looks like Gandalf, a wise sage or wizard. This archetype has a deep understanding of the world and can face darkness with old knowledge and power. When Gandalf faces the Balrog, he thinks of the hero's journey, a story pattern that can be found in many cultures, from ancient Greece to Norse myths in Europe in the Middle Ages. Gandalf goes on a dangerous quest, just like the heroes in these stories. He faces tests that show how brave, smart, and determined he is. His fight with the Balrog is a turning point where these traits are put to the final test. He fights an old evil with the power of all time, shining as a light of hope and defiance against the forces of evil. By tying Gandalf to a long history of bravery, knowledge, and magic, these mythological references give him more depth and meaning. They tell us that Tolkien's legendarium is more than just a work of fiction. It's a tapestry made from myths and legends. Some truths and themes are timeless and apply to all countries and generations that can be seen in Gandalf. His journey and the things he wrote are part of a deeper story that speaks to the whole of human experience. Doesn't it make you curious to know more about Gandalf? We had the same feeling, so here you have it. We meet him for the first time in the Shire. He is known as a great wizard, but to the hobbits, this mostly just means that he makes great fireworks. The hobbits live a quiet life and don't know much about the bigger, more dangerous world. This shows how simple their hopes are. But Gandalf is not just good at setting off fireworks. In fairy stories, many wizards use their magic in flashy, obvious ways. Gandalf doesn't do that very often. You won't see him move, make himself invisible, or throw fireballs at the Nazgul. This makes us wonder, what exactly does Gandalf have the power to do? To begin, it is important to know that Gandalf is more than just an old man who can do magic. His being a Maya, a strong spiritual being made by Eru Iluvatar, the world's god, makes him who he is. And this means Gandalf is ageless and can change into other forms. This is how he can die as Gandalf the Grey and come back as Gandalf the White. Because he will never die, he has a huge amount of knowledge and experience, much more than any human. Gandalf can see into the future. He can see some things about the future, but not everything. This is why he feels close to the hobbits and knows how important they are to what's going to happen. Even more, he knows that Gollum plays a big part, for better or worse. Gandalf's spiritual connection and insight are shown by the fact that he can feel things that other people can't. Gandalf is very wise, which is one of his best qualities. He knew he could trust Frodo with the ring because he knew the Hobbit would be strong and honest. Gandalf also made the smart choice to attack the Black Gates of Mordor in a way that seemed impossible. Sauron's attention was taken off Frodo and Sam by this brave move, which made it more likely that they would make it to Mount Doom. Gandalf's knowledge and ability to plan were very important to the success of their quest. Gandalf is naturally powerful because he is a Maya. He is strong by nature, even when he is not casting magic. He was given a special item when he got to Middle-earth. It was Narya, the Ring of Fire, one of the 3 Ether Rings. This ring made Gandalf's natural skills better in 2 important ways. Narya first gave Gandalf the power to cheer other people up. People got new hope and confidence everywhere he went. When Gandalf fell in Moria, this was clear. The society members who were still alive were not only sad, but they had also given up a lot of hope. Aragorn had to step up and tell them they had to keep going with their goal, even though they had no hope. People who were close to Gandalf felt a strong sense of purpose and determination simply being around him. Secondly, Narya gave Gandalf the ability to control fire. The fireworks show in the Shire was just one small example of this. He also used firepower in a lot of other ways. He was able to start campfires in the rain, light up dark places like Moria, and even throw burning pine cones at dogs. His skill with fire was one of the many useful skills that he could use in battle or for everyday tasks. He knew a lot of different kinds of magic as well. He said he knew more than 200 different spells that could open doors. He cast a spell in Moria to shut a door and keep it shut. He could change how he looked to make himself look bigger and stronger, which he did to scare off enemies or get people to respect him. He could also make his voice stronger and more authoritative, which he used to great effect in many scenarios. Gandalf's magic in battle was mostly about using fire and light to scare off enemies instead of killing them. In Moria, for example, he pushed his staff through a broken door, letting light pour out and stunning their enemies for a while. When he rode to save Faramir, the Nazgul were riding their dead animals around in the sky. There was a flash of light when Gandalf raised his hand. The Nazgul screamed and turned away. Gandalf met the Nazgul by himself earlier at Weathertop. He let out a flash of light and fire that Frodo and Aragorn could see from miles away. Light and fire were mostly used by Gandalf to scare off enemies and buy time, not to fight them directly. Mind power is another interesting thing that Gandalf can do. He is some kind of telepath. There are many times when Gandalf talks to his thinking mind. He tells Frodo in Rivendell that he knows exactly what happened to him, which means he can share thoughts or read minds. Tolkien wrote a lot about telepathy in Middle-earth. Gandalf's mind magic is an important part of who he is, although it is often subtle. Gandalf was strong in more ways than just magic. Wisdom, hope, and a deep knowledge of the world and its people were at the heart of it. People were filled with hope and confidence just by being around him. His forethought and ability to think strategically were very important to the Fellowship's quest success. Narya helped him improve his natural magical skills, giving him a wide range of tools he could use in different settings. Gandalf's magic was always used for a bigger reason, whether it was to start a campfire, protect his friends from danger, or boost their morale. In The Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is a pretty cool guy, right? I mean, he can connect with his horse Shadowfax so well that it's almost like they're talking to each other without words, even when they're far apart. At the end of the story, Gandalf and other important figures such as Aragorn, Galadriel, and Elrond are seen talking to each other in their minds, and they seem to be using magic. Gandalf's magic is amazing and unique. He once said that Saruman's staff was broken, and it was. And when Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas met Gandalf the White for the first time, they thought he was Saruman. When Gandalf raised his staff, Gimli's axe flew out of his hand, Aragorn's sword caught fire, and Legolas's arrow flew through the air. It's not just the flashy power that Gandalf has, it does a lot. He's good at mind magic, water magic, fire magic, picking locks, and more. He shows more than a dozen different ways to use magic in the series, and that's not even all of them. But what makes some people think Gandalf doesn't do a lot of magic could be that his magic is not as flashy as magic in other fairy stories. While in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf's magic is not as strong, it's on purpose. Magic wears him down, especially when he uses something called a word of command, which looks a lot like a lot of work. Gandalf knows a lot about magic, but he only uses it when he has to. It's also easy for Gandalf to use his magical runes and make magical weapons better. Do you remember when Glamdring broke the bog sword? He may have blessed the beer at the Prancing Pony so it would taste great for 7 years. Now that's a fun idea. Gandalf does not like to brag though. He does not do big, cool magic just to look cool. For example, he drives away the Nazgul with fire and light because he has to. Aside from fun things like fireworks or smoke rings with Bilbo, he likes to keep things low-key most of the time. He is humble because part of the job is to help and inspire others, not take the lead himself. Gandalf is one of the strongest beings in Middle-earth, but he waits for humans, elves, dwarves, and hobbits to take the lead. He's even stronger after he changes into Gandalf the White. He tells Gimli that he's now more dangerous than almost anything else, maybe even the Dark Lord. Now that we know better about Gandalf, let's get back to the battle we were talking about, because now you'll be able to get to know Gandalf better too. After his battle with the Balrog, Gandalf's words are heard all over the land and give people confidence and hope. Stories about Gandalf's bravery spread all over, from the halls of Minas Tirith to the woods of Lothlorien. These stories inspire people to stand up to Sauron and his minions. People are moved by these stories and encouraged to stand strong against the evil that threatens their world. But maybe Gandalf's words have more of an effect on people in the long run than on the people who hear them right now. Gandalf's speech will continue to encourage heroes and adventurers for a long time after the events of the War of the Ring are forgotten. In dark and hopeless times, it shines like a beacon of light, telling people of the strength of hope and courage. The word that Gandalf sent to the Balrog goes beyond Tolkien's mythology and touches on themes like bravery, sacrifice, and the power of hope that lasts forever. So, what does Gandalf mean when he talks to the Balrog? Well, it's a brave stand against the darkness and a promise to always support the cause of light. At times when things look the worst, the light of hope and courage can still shine through. So let us know, what do you infer from Gandalf's speech? Make sure you share your views with us in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed watching today's video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for our next update. Thanks for watching!